Smoked and drank all night, acted all alright. Had no need to fight tonight.
Hey, what's up everyone, it's game time. Today I'm back with another insane high graphics games for low spec PCs. These games are well optimized that they can run on 4GB RAM and 128MB VRAM. Before starting the video, make sure to subscribe and like the video to make this video go viral. In number 1 we have Far Cry 3. Far Cry 3 is a 2012 first-person shooter developed by Ubisoft Montreal and published by Ubisoft. It is the third main installment in the Far Cry series. The game takes place on the fictional Rook Islands, a tropical archipelago which can be freely explored by players. Gameplay focuses on combat and exploration. Players can use a variety of weapons to defeat human enemies and hostile wildlife, and the game features elements found in role-playing games such as skill trees and experience. After a vacation goes awry, protagonist Jason Brody must save his friends, who have been kidnapped by pirates, and escape from the island and its unhinged inhabitants. Ubisoft Montreal collaborated with Ubisoft's global development team, including Massive Entertainment, Ubisoft Shanghai, Ubisoft Bucharest, Ubisoft Reflections and Red Storm Entertainment. The game's development was partially restarted in 2010 after the departure of several key creative staff. The team evaluated the feedback for Far Cry 2 and identified areas that needed to be improved or removed. The team spent considerable time designing the island, which they described as the second most important character in the game. Inspirations were taken from films and TV shows such as Apocalypse Now and Lost, as well as video games The Elder Scrolls V, Skyrim and Red Dead Redemption. Michael Mando was hired to portray Vaz, an antagonist. The team compared to Darth Vader. The game was announced in June 2011 and Ubisoft promoted the game with various companion apps, web series and crossover. It was released for Microsoft Windows, PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 in November 2012. The game received critical acclaim upon release, with praise directed at its characters, world design, progression, and gameplay, though its narrative and multiplayer modes received criticism. Despite weak pre-order sales, nearly 10 million copies of the game were sold. It was nominated for multiple year-end accolades including Game of the Year and Best Shooter awards by several gaming publications. Ubisoft supported the game with downloadable content and released Far Cry 3: Blood Dragon, the game's standalone expansion, in 2013. A successor, Far Cry 4, was released in November 2014. The game was re-released for PlayStation 4 and Xbox One in June 2018. So if you like games with action and adventure, Far Cry 3 is the best for you. For me, I like the game because of its storyline and visual graphics. In the second list we have Forza Horizon 2. Forza Horizon 2 is the second game in the series to be developed principally by a studio other than Forza Motorsport developer Turn 10 Studios. Playground Games, the lead developer for Forza Horizon, focused on the Xbox One version, using the graphics engine from Forza Motorsport 5 as their starting point. While the engine is capable of displaying content 1080p in 60 frames per second, the game was locked at 1080p in 30 frames per second, which was deemed necessary because of the game's open-world nature. According to creative director Ralph Fulton, one of the big technical challenges that we had to face was making sure that we could stream in a world that is next-gen beautiful but fast enough to keep up with the fastest cars. Sumo Digital took the lead for the Xbox 360 version, starting from the original Forza Horizon graphics engine. As with the original game, Turn 10 Studios provided support to the primary developers. The Xbox 360 version does not include the weather system such as rain or Drivator AI found in the more powerful Xbox One version, and also omits tuning and the free roam open world, as very few barriers can be broken through and crossed, with Playground Games calling the two versions different games. In the third list we have F.E.A.R. 2. F.E.A.R. 2 Project Origin is a first-person shooter survival horror video game developed by Monolith Productions and published by Warner Bros. Interactive Entertainment for Microsoft Windows, PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360. It is the sequel to F.E.A.R. and is the second game in the F.E.A.R. series. It was released on February 10, 2009, and was made available on Steam 2 days later. An expansion, F.E.A.R 2, Reborn, was released on September 3 the same year. The gameplay maintains the core elements from the original, including slow-mo combat, martial arts attacks, and enhanced AI. The AI from the original F.E.A.R was known for its exploitation of the environments, taking cover behind pillars and knocking down tables, and many of these behaviors have been retained for the sequel. New features in the game include iron sight aiming, creating cover by pushing objects, and the ability to use mechs during vehicle segments. The ability to lean and walk have been removed. Project Origin features a more diverse cast of enemies, as well as more encounters with supernatural enemies.
Sure, trouble finds us the same way you found me, slumped
In the fourth list we have Max Payne 3. Max Payne 3 is a third-person shooter video game developed by Rockstar Studios and published by Rockstar Games. It was released on May 15, 2012 for the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360. A Microsoft Windows port was released on May 29, 2012, followed by an OS X port on June 20, 2013. The game is the third entry in the Max Payne series and the sequel to Max Payne 2. The Fall of Max Payne. The game is played from a third-person perspective. Throughout the single-player mode, players control Max Payne, a former detective. 9 years after the events of the second game, Max becomes employed as a private security contractor in Sao Paulo, Brazil, but becomes entangled in a quest filled with death and betrayal. An online multiplayer mode is included with the game, allowing up to 16 players to engage in both cooperative and competitive gameplay and recreations of multiple single-player settings. As part of their research for the game's setting, the developers conducted field research around Sao Paulo throughout development and captured footage for the design team. Development duties were shared between many of Rockstar's studios worldwide. At release, Max Payne 3 received highly positive reactions from critics, with praise particularly directed at its narrative, atmosphere, attention to detail and action, though some criticism was aimed at the change in style from its predecessors, its linear design, and depiction of Sao Paulo. Max Payne 3 achieved high sales, shipping approximately 3 million units in the first week of release. It was nominated for multiple year-end accolades from several gaming publications, winning a variety of them. Moving to the last list we have Sleeping Dogs. Sleeping Dogs is an action-adventure video game developed by United Front Games and published by Square Enix's European subsidiary. It was originally released for PlayStation 3, Xbox 360 and Windows in 2012. Set in contemporary Hong Kong, the story follows Wei Shen, an undercover Chinese-American police officer on assignment to infiltrate the Sun On Yee Triad organization. Gameplay focuses on Shen's fighting, shooting and parkour abilities, and on gadgets that can be used for combat and exploration. Players must complete missions to unlock content and continue the story, but they may instead freely roam the game's open-world environment and engage in both legal and criminal activities. The latter may incite a police response, the intensity of which is controlled by a heat system. Actions such as fighting, driving and racing grant Shen statistical rewards and earn the player achievements. Sleeping Dogs' difficult and prolonged development began in 2008. The game was announced in 2009 as part of the True Crime series, but was cancelled by Activision Blizzard in 2011 as a result of the project's delays and budget issues. 6 months later, Square Enix bought the publishing rights and renamed the game Sleeping Dogs, without the True Crime license, but considered a spiritual successor. During development, United Front staff visited Hong Kong to conduct field research for the visual environments and sound. So guys, if you like what I do, consider subscribing and hit that like button one last time, I will appreciate that.